We know the story of Jesus' birth. We know all about his ministry, his miracles, and his final days. But the Bible gives us just one single glimpse of him between the ages of 12 and 30. Then, for 18 years, nothing. Have you ever really thought about that gap? What was Jesus doing between the ages of 12 and 30? While legends talk about wild journeys to faraway lands, the most likely story is one that's been hiding in plain sight, a story of work, family, and faith, grounded firmly in the ancient world. So, let's piece together the clues these ancient texts have actually left behind, the one story we have. To crack the mystery of the silent years, we have to start with the only story the Gospels give us. The book of Luke tells us that when Jesus was 12, he went with Mary and Joseph to Jerusalem for the annual Passover festival, a trip devout Jewish families made every single year. But on the way home to Nazareth, his parents realized with absolute horror that he wasn't with them. After a frantic 3-day search, they finally found him. And he wasn't lost in the market or playing with kids. He was sitting in the temple, the very heart of Jewish life, listening to and questioning the most brilliant religious teachers of the day. The scripture says they were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his worried mom asked why he'd done this, his reply was stunning for a 12-year-old. "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know that I must be in my Father's house?" This one event gives us a massive clue. It shows a boy who already has a deep, almost shocking sense of his divine mission and an incredible grasp of Scripture, long before his public ministry ever started. And right after that, silence. The Bible just says, "And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man." For the next 18 years, the historical record goes completely dark. This gap has fueled centuries of speculation, leading to some truly wild theories about where he went and what he did, exploring the legends. History hates a vacuum, and the 18-year gap in Jesus' life is one of the biggest vacuums out there. So, over the centuries, people have tried to fill it with some pretty extraordinary tales. One of the most stubborn legends popped up in the 19th century, that Jesus traveled to India. A Russian journalist named Nikola Notovich made this famous, claiming he'd found ancient scrolls in a Tibetan monastery about a saint named Isa, who he said was Jesus. In this version, Jesus spent his lost years studying with Hindu Brahmins and Tibetan Buddhists. Supporters point to some overlaps between Jesus' teachings and Eastern philosophies. But mainstream historians and biblical scholars are all in agreement. They reject this theory. The entire story hangs on Notovich's word, and the manuscripts he discovered have never been seen by anyone else. In fact, when other people went to the monastery to check, the monks said they'd never even heard of Notovich or his scrolls. While you can find similar ethical ideas in different cultures, that's not proof of direct contact. Other legends send Jesus to Britain with his great-uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, who was supposedly a tin merchant. These tales are woven into medieval folklore, like the King Arthur and Holy Grail stories, but they have zero basis in actual history. They appeared more than 1,000 years after Jesus lived. And then there are even wackier local traditions, like a small town in Japan that claims to be Jesus' final resting place, which scholars also agree is just modern folklore. Some theories keep him closer to home, suggesting he joined a radical desert community like the Essenes near the Dead Sea. But just like the fantastic travel stories, there is simply no credible evidence, textual or archaeological, to back any of this up. The earliest and most reliable sources are all silent on any such journeys. So if he wasn't in India, Britain, or a desert commune, where was he? The answer, it turns out, is a lot less sensational, but way more profound. Before we get into what the historical evidence actually tells us, I want to hear from you. What do you think Jesus was doing during those hidden years? Have you heard any other theories? Drop them in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this historical detective work, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss our next investigation. The life of a tektōn. The most compelling answer to the mystery of the silent years is hiding in a single Greek word from the Gospels: tektōn. In Mark's Gospel, when Jesus comes back to Nazareth to teach, the shocked locals ask, "Is not this the tektōn?" That word is usually translated as carpenter, but it means so much more. A tektōn was a skilled craftsman, a builder, someone who worked with wood, stone, maybe even metal. He's the guy you'd hire to build a house, make a yoke for an ox, or fix a boat. This wasn't just a job, it was his identity. Most sons, especially the oldest, took over their father's trade, and it seems clear Jesus took up the family business from Joseph. Now, picture his life. Nazareth was a tiny village, maybe a few hundred people, but just an hour's walk away, about 4 miles, was the booming city of Sepphoris. After being destroyed in a revolt, Sepphoris was being rebuilt into a showpiece city by Herod Antipas, called the Ornament of Galilee. A massive construction project like that would have been a magnet for skilled builders, for tektōns like Joseph and his son, Jesus. It's entirely plausible that Jesus spent years working there, shaping stone and wood. This would have exposed him to a much bigger world than tiny Nazareth, a Greco-Roman city with diverse people, public buildings, and paved streets. His work would have been tough and honest. There was an old Jewish saying, "If you do not teach your son how to work, you teach him how to be a thief." This life of labor wasn't just about putting food on the table for his family, which he, as the eldest, would have been responsible for after Joseph's death. It shaped how he saw the world. Think about his parables. He talks about building a house on solid rock versus sand, a lesson a builder learns the hard way. He speaks of a king counting the cost before building a tower, a yoke that is easy, and a burden that is light, and the narrow gate, all images pulled straight from the world of a tektōn. Some scholars even suggest his work may have taken him to the Sea of Galilee, repairing the fishing boats for the very men who would become his disciples. His deep familiarity with their world hints at a shared experience, a life of faith and family. But his life wasn't only about work. First-century Galilee was a hotbed of intense Jewish faith. It wasn't some rural backwater. Galilee was home to devout Jews soaked in the Torah. Every village, no matter how small, would have had a synagogue that doubled as a school. A Jewish boy would start his education around age 5, learning to read, write, and memorize the Hebrew scriptures. The kid who wowed the teachers in the temple at age 12 would have spent the next 18 years diving even deeper into the law and the prophets. The silent years were years of serious spiritual preparation. He was also part of a family. The Gospels name his mother, Mary, and his brothers and sisters. As the oldest, he would have shouldered the heavy responsibility of providing for them. This was a life of ordinary duties, community ties, and daily work. It was a humble, obscure life, lived in a small town where everyone knew him simply as the local craftsman. He wasn't some wandering mystic or a scholar trained in a foreign land. He was one of them. And this is the whole point. The silence of the Gospels isn't an empty space. It's proof of the profound meaning found in a normal life. For 18 years, Jesus lived a life of quiet work, faith, and family duty. These weren't lost years. They were the very foundation his public ministry was built on. He made the ordinary sacred by living it. He understood the struggles of common people because he was one. He spoke their language because he had lived their life. So, what's the real story of Jesus' silent years? There are no secret scrolls that can give us a day-by-day account, but when you piece together the historical and textual clues, a powerful story emerges. It isn't a story of globe-trotting adventures or learning secret knowledge in distant lands. It's the story of a young man growing up in a devout Jewish family in Galilee. It's the story of a tektōn, a builder, who knew the feel of wood and stone, who likely walked the road to Sepphoris for work, and whose hands were calloused from labor. It's the story of a son and brother who took care of his family, and a faithful Jew who was immersed in the scriptures of his people. Those 18 silent years weren't empty. They were years of preparation, of being shaped by family, faith, and work. It was in the quiet obscurity of Nazareth, in the dust of the workshop and the daily rhythm of an ordinary life, that the boy who astounded the temple elders grew into the man who would change the world. The silence, it turns out, speaks volumes. Maybe the greatest miracle isn't in the public ministry, but in those hidden years where the Son of God lived as the son of a builder. And maybe that's the reminder we need. Your quiet seasons matter. Your ordinary life has meaning. Preparation is not punishment. It's purpose. If this story moved you, share it, like it. Comment below. What do you believe happened in Jesus' silent years? And don't forget to subscribe to Mindshift Society, where faith meets curiosity, and every story reveals something deeper.